What's up with it? This Big Bro Grizz. You watching Player Talk. This is part 3 of picking the right woman versus the wrong woman. When we left off, we was talking about balance and talking about how important balance is. Let me get my notes real quick so I can check these notes. I wanted this video to be real good, so I told y'all I took notes for this video. So when we left off, we was talking about balance, and me personally, I think balance is key. I think it's everything. Especially when we talk about men and women. And when I talk about balance, balance is in contrast to equality. I was talking to my bro, Big Mark. He commented on like one of the last videos. He told me hit him up so we could talk about it. I think he might have misunderstood me a little bit because he was saying he thought I was encouraging equality, and he was saying, well, I think what you're really talking about is equity, which is true. I don't really know exactly how to express equity, but it's this poster to help you better understand what equity is. It was like a picture of 3 people trying to look over a fence, and the people were different heights. One person was like real tall, one person was average height, one person was short. And the description was a description of equality, which would be each person getting the same size step stool to look over the fence, even though they're different heights. So the short person still wasn't able to see, the medium height person was barely able to see, but the tall person was able to see. And equality was each person getting a stool tall enough for them to see over the fence. So the shortest person had the tallest stool, and the tallest person had the shortest stool, but everybody was able to see over the fence. That's equity, where it creates a level playing field, not necessarily everybody starting at the same spot. So that's how I feel balance is with men and women. Men and women, it's not about necessarily being 50-50. It's about what creates a level playing field for you two in a relationship. More so, what makes y'all one, not level. Because saying a level playing field is like y'all competing against each other. When I say level playing field, I mean like, what's the balance of y'all energy and effort and roles which make y'all one? Not necessarily saying, oh, as the man, you take out the trash, as the woman, I wash the dishes. That might not really balance y'all out, depending on the roles. Because it's like, it's dudes who like rip and run the streets all day, get money and shit, so they ain't got time to do like household stuff for real like that. So the balance might be, you take care of all the household stuff, and I'm gonna be ripping and running, getting this money, you know what I mean? And some dudes are like, maybe more like, I work a 9 to 5, so I come home and I help out with the household stuff. That might be our balance. So that's why I talk more about balance and equality. And I've said before, I think women are cheating themselves by seeking equality. And it's so many deep conversations you can have about that. So I'm not gonna go too far in that. So why does it have to be balance over being equal and not both? Because to me, the things that give men an advantage in the world are kind of constant across the board in a way which generally just prevents equality. I've heard this conversation, this argument many times on different podcasts and different channels. And it's always an argument. It's never really a conversation. It's always an argument. And I want to turn the argument into a conversation. So this is what happens. I think you lose most women in this conversational argument when you go to a very honest place of saying, what happens if we are in a post-apocalyptic situation, like on some shit like maybe we're in a war status, like maybe it's like active war over here, like, and shit ain't functional. Like, how, let's say how COVID was when everything was shut down. Like for a minute, you couldn't even go to the grocery store for real. You couldn't order no food. You couldn't go to the grocery store. It wasn't no going to the mall or nothing. Like, so it was like you was kind of stuck with what you had. And the ideal is, what if things got worse? What if things didn't get better? And what if things stayed shut down and it became more of a survival of the fittest type thing? The argument be that men could just essentially dominate without it being so many rules, and like police ain't really in the picture and stuff like that. They just saying men could just come in and dominate and take what they wanted. Women still have their different powers, which I think one of their main powers is influence. Like, they just have the ability to persuade men to do things. They have, there's more they can do than that, but that's like one of the main things I think is their power of persuasion. So yeah, women will still be able to manipulate a lot of stuff and control a lot of stuff and dictate stuff. But when you get down to that raw aspect of maybe you walking looking for some food and this man walking looking for some food, he can do whatever you want to do to you. That's the argument that men and women I think get lost in when they talk about like kind of this equality thing. Because I think a lot of women want to say it's not that simple. Like, I get where you're going straight to where you have your advantage, and women are probably looking at like, nah, nigga, I know some shit I can do too in this situation that you don't know about, and I don't know what that stuff is. But like I said, women are built to survive, and trust and believe, if it's a post-apocalyptic situation, women are gonna disappear off the face of the earth. So the thing with me is the things are constant in a man that normally make it hard for men and women to see each other as equals. And this is kind of what I look at. This is my example, my comparison. I always use basketball a lot. I look at the WNBA versus the NBA. Everybody knows that the WNBA doesn't get as many views and attention as the NBA, and everybody knows why. It's not as exciting. The women ain't dunking like that. There's a couple women that dunk every now and then. They ain't as fast. They don't, it's just not as entertaining. So this is the perfect example of how equality is counterproductive to the woman's success, because they're trying to play on the same size court, same size rims, under the exact same rules and everything, which create the exact same expectations. Since y'all playing on a level playing field, and you hear a lot of these WNBA players like Candace Parker, she be on TNT commentating, and you hear her like when men, this is the one that pissed women off. The women basketball players get pissed off when men be like, hey, why don't y'all just lower the rim a little bit so y'all can start dunking? Because a lot of these women can dunk, like you know how niggas like can dunk in practice, but they can't really dunk in the game like that. Like a lot of these women, if you was like go dunk, they'll go up there and dunk that bitch, like low key. They might not windmill it, but they'll go and dunk it. But doing it in the game is a whole different situation. So dudes are like, why don't y'all just lower the goal to like 9.5 or 9 foot, so a chick come through the line like, bow, yeah, bitch, take that, yeah. She hanging on the rim and shit like, yeah, and I'm on my period, bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like some shit like that. I watch that shit. If I saw a female come through the lane, she hanging on the rim and shit, all that shit, I'm like, hey, that was, she caught 2 bodies, yo, like, and you know how like when women fall down and shit, it's funny like watching women fall because they don't want to accept the fall. So like imagine that shit, like that should be hilarious. So me personally, I think I would love to see the women play on like a 9.5, 9 foot goal. I might even make the court a little shorter. I would keep it as wide, but I might even make it a little shorter so they can get up and down a little quicker and keep the shit going a little bit faster. Because, so maybe you're offended by that, maybe you're not, maybe you get it, maybe you don't. But this is the contradiction of it all, right? The women basketball players want to play on the same size court, same size goal, and get the same level of recognition, right? Even though they ain't exciting and entertaining, and don't want to make the compromise, which could make it more exciting and entertaining, but still want to be perceived and respected on the same level. But this is the caveat. We got little ass hands, so we need a smaller ball though. But don't hold that against us though. But give us credit for being better shooters, even though we shooting on the same size rim with a small ass ball. So of course it's gonna be easier to make shots. So this whole ideal that like women's basketball, they're more fundamentally sound and they shoot better. They have to be more fundamentally sound because the athleticism ain't there like that. And maybe they shoot better, maybe they don't, but y'all shooting a smaller ball on the same size goal. So I'm not about to give y'all too much credit on that nigga. But yeah, that's the truth. Like, don't sit there and play with a smaller ball and then be like, we want to be considered the same and we don't want to lower the rim, because we offended by that, but we ain't offended by the idea of playing with a smaller ball. You know what I'm saying? Imagine if somebody like Kawhi Leonard, who they say got like big ass hands, played with a little ass girl ball. Like that nigga would be doing all Giannis with a little ass ball. Come on, cuz you could never stop that nigga from doing whatever the fuck he wanted to do. Steph Curry would literally never fucking miss if he was shooting with a W. That nigga would score 100 points a game if he was playing with a WNBA ball. So that's why I don't really believe in the equality. That's why it's like equity. The equity is already in place with WNBA versus NBA. The equity or a piece of equity is them playing with a smaller ball. That way they ain't losing the ball all the time or whatever. Like it ain't as hard to do what they doing with that big ass ball, and they got smaller hands. So if it's already in place that you need a smaller ball because of your physical limitations, then we need to implement other rules to balance out the physical limitations with the expectations of the sport and performance, so that we have equity, we have balance. So we already got a smaller ball, lower the rim a little bit, shorten the court a little bit. Boom, it's fixed. You'll see women come through two-hand tomahawking, hanging on the rim, like PMSing on you, bitch. I think that shit is hilarious, me personally. You know what I'm saying? So what we got? So that was the WNBA and shit. Okay, so for me, the follow-up for that is, this is why a man should be uncompromising in how he feels the interaction between him and his woman should be, is because essentially women are picking and choosing when they want to be equal. You know, and that is an argument that you will rarely hear women honestly acknowledge, that it's a picking and a choosing of when they want to be equal. And this is for the women that make that argument, because I sit down and I might have conversations, or I had conversations throughout my life with women where it's a lot of women that ain't like, don't be preaching that equality shit because they understand it on a different level. It ain't necessarily because I like being subservient. That ain't what I'm saying. They'll just be like, that equality shit is like, they get kind of what I'm saying. We kind of say the same thing a little bit, or they just see it like, I can play my role, he can play his role, and it ain't got to be about us doing the exact same thing or us being seen in the same light. So as a dude, that's what I'm gonna encourage you to do. All my young dudes, you got to become uncompromising. And this is easy to say because this is why it's easier to say and harder to do, because this is what happened to me. This is what happened to a lot of guys, is you'll be standing your ground on this, I'm not tolerating a certain level of behavior or a certain level of interaction, and I'm not gonna like really seriously deal with a woman unless the interaction is a certain kind of way. So you stand your ground. So you're gonna miss a lot of women. You're gonna pass up a lot of women, which means you're gonna be lonely. This is a real ass thing. This is what happened with this is what happened with most people that I'm talking to, that I'm trying to get my message out to. We be out here having these standards for ourselves. We get lonely, and I don't even want to say we lowering our standards, because most of the time we dealing with people on our same level. We just have higher expectations, or we have like a superiority complex to people on our same level sometimes. So what'll happen is we'll just deal with somebody on our same level, or somebody that's accessible to us, that we actually got access to, and the mindset will kind of be like, I'm just gonna kind of fool with them low key, like they ain't gonna get the best of me because I know I can get better. Even though if you could get better, you would get better. You know what I'm saying? So you need to appreciate what's really in front of you. This go for men and women. So as a dude, you got to be uncompromising, because when you start getting lonely and you start moving in desperation, nothing really good ever happens when you move out of desperation. You know, because you get to that point, you don't went a couple months now. Let's say you just went a month and ain't had no date. Now go a couple months, you ain't had no date. You know, you standing your ground, so you ain't playing all these phone games. You ain't double calling, ain't double texting. You ain't, overreaching and shit like that. Because before I got like more mature, and before I had kids, before I got more mature, before I just had a better understanding of myself and the world, I would overreach a lot. And I had success in overreaching. To the degree I could get up with a woman and we could hang out and we could be intimate and shit like that. But it might not be on the level, like it might be on some, I gotta reach out 4 or 5 times before we get up type shit. Or maybe they say or do some shit, I really ain't feeling that. And I know if I speak on it, they gonna get all, combative. So since I'm trying to, still get the cheeks, like you might like act like you ain't hear some shit, or act like they ain't do some shit that they did that really bothered you. Or maybe you step up, you stay your ground, you say some shit, and now they on, oh, you standing your ground, let's see how good you can stand your ground. And you that ain't what you trying to do. You ain't trying to have a competition on who can stand their ground. You trying to get up with it. So as a dude, you got to be uncompromising, because if you let a woman start dictating y'all relationship, she'll resent you for it, to be perfectly honest. Because women are good at running shit, to be honest. Like, women are real good at being like task oriented and getting objectives completed and stuff like that. But that's why I be saying a woman is like a turbo boost for a man, because when a man's doing all the shit, women are really, really good at getting shit done. Like, if you put a woman in the mix, shit probably gonna get done. If it's a bunch of niggas, egos might get in the way, and like that tough shit and who the biggest and baddest, that shit gets in the way, and a lot of times shit might not get done, or get done too as good as it could have got done. But I was sitting down with the homie Fastlane yesterday, and we was talking, and he was like, you know, he got some shit he trying to put together, and he like finding the niggas he need who can do this, who can do videos, who can write, who can do this, and he like, but we need a woman. And he didn't even necessarily know exactly what her role was, but he's like, we need a woman in the mix. And he was kind of trying to talk, and I was like, oh, I feel you, like, to balance the energies and that shit that women bring and give, like that shit that you need. It's a necessity. But that's why I say you need to be uncompromising, because if you let this woman start dictating the relationship, running the relationship, that's not what I think her role is. And she don't want all that pressure, because she don't want to consistently do that. Because once somebody start building the flow of the relationship, then you can't sit there, okay, now let me take over, because you're going to do shit a whole different way. So you're going to restart the shit and reset everything. So if the woman's literally in charge and she's the one that dictates everything, it'll build resentment, because that's not her natural role, for real. You know, and then as a dude, what'll end up happening is you always going to her for approval for shit. Since she dictates, or she makes a lot of the choice, or she the one that handles a lot of the business shit, every time something needs to be figured out, you gotta, hey, yo, so what we doing with this? Hey, so what you think we should do with this? Hey, what about like, you bring some shit like, yeah, I think we should do that, and shit like, no, I already handled that. This is this and this is this. So now you like the student in the situation. Now, if that's how y'all balance is, like, it can be like, that can be somebody's balance depending on what y'all dynamic is. Maybe you a nigga who's gone all the time. Like, maybe you a nigga that, like, you work in the military. Maybe you're in the military, so you enlisted, so you ain't gonna be here for 4 years anyway. So yeah, she handles all the business, and when you talk to her, you just maybe send money back, but you gotta list, like, she gotta communicate to you what's going on. But that's a balance though, like, based on that situation. But if you, like, y'all living under the same roof and stuff like that, it'll be better for you as a man to be the one dictating the flow and stuff, and looking at your woman as like a navigator. Like, hey, I got this little thing I want to do. I'm gonna shoot it at you. Tell me what you think, or tell me how you think. You know what I mean? I should move with that shit. I'm using these examples, right, because this is something I pointed out, was that a lot of the real successful men. Do I need to close? No, I'm gonna keep this open, because I got some facts and some dates on here that I want to point out and make sure I get right. So a lot of the real successful men that I look up to and admire in the history of the world, people like Muhammad Ali, you know, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, you know, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, shit like that. Bruce Lee, you know, shit like, I don't want to say black dudes like Bruce Lee and shit, you know. I think, like, most of these dudes, I'm not sure about Bruce Lee. I didn't look up and do his research and shit. But all these men were married during their careers, like during the peak of their careers, the best parts of their careers, if not their entire career. All these men were married, and I don't think that's no coincidence that the men that are in the top of their field were, like, all married during the prime and the best parts of their careers, because I'll be talking about how that brings balance and shit. So before I go into this, I'm gonna cut this piece right here, and we're gonna see what we got, and I'm gonna do the part 4, so this video ain't too long. So I want to appreciate everybody for watching. You know, like, comment, and subscribe. Please leave these comments so, you know, we can get the conversation going and build on it. And this Big Bro Grizz, you watching Player Talk, you know, show some love.